Do you believe we're here to be extraordinary? We can be ordinary or we can be extraordinary. These days, we're seeing a lot of what ordinary can bring, huh? And a lot of what could be extraordinary, we're missing, aren't we? If we look at the collective world around us, do you see anything that could be done a little bit better? When we're not mindful, when we're not awake, when we're not aware, we live from our wounds. And when we live from our wounds and we live in our wounds, all we can do is pass on our wounds. Amen? So part of the practice, the spiritual practice, is awakening to what is within and healing what is within and starting right here, right now, with each moment and doing our own work so that we can be here to be what we came to be, so that we can generate light rather than pass on our wounds. Yeah? But these days, you see a lot of suffering, don't you? I mean, we always see a lot of suffering. It's part of the human condition, right? But these days, we're faced with it in a whole new way, a whole new experience of it. We see children suffering and children needlessly dying. And it breaks our hearts open, doesn't it? Because all the world's children are our children. And it's heartbreaking. And the soul knows something is not right when children are needlessly suffering. Amen? So it's a wake-up call. 1 Corinthians 12:26 says, if one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. Martin Luther King gave the same sentiment, but in this way, he said, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. And Thich Nhat Hanh says, we are here to awaken from the illusions of our separateness. So right now, we're carrying something heavy into each moment. We see war, we see violence, we see needless suffering. And we are feeling and presencing each other and sometimes ourselves, right? Breaking open. But war is not just something that happens between nations. It happens in politics, it happens in government, it happens in communities, it happens in families, it happens in life, it happens even within ourselves, does it not? When we fight against what is, when we feel the turmoil inside. So in unity, we start here. We start where we can have impact. We start right where we are. Whenever I talk to my little one about feelings, and I talked to her for the first time and I hated it. She's 7.5, and I talked to her about war. Because I know what? She's going to hear about it, right? And I was on my little news app, which I do sparingly, but I was on it. And you know what I would normally do when there's pictures of bombs going off and flames? I would normally swipe to a new page right away. I just, what are you looking at? Not that. But the last time, I was not in resistance with the present moment and the human condition and what is. I wasn't fighting with it, saying, no, I don't want my child to know about this, to see about this. She's too young. It's too much. It's grotesque. Instead, I stayed on that page. And I took a deep breath in. And as my elders and as my tribe have taught me to listen to the moment and to parent from the moment of truth and power, recognizing that each soul is their own individual creation, that they come here and we cannot protect them, but we can guide them, we can support them. So I took a breath and I moved through my resistance and I left that on the screen. And she said, "What is that?" And I said, "That's war." And then I went on to give her something she could work with. I said, "This is what happens when adults don't grow up, they just get older." When adults live from their wounds. And I gave her an example, like, you know how when you get angry, you know how when you feel like this and you do this and I do this? I call it tigering when I do it. "I'm angry at you," she said the other day. "I'm angry at you." I said, we have a gift right now, and the gift is mindfulness, and we get to learn from this. Anger is our teacher. We get to learn from it. We get to heal. But what happens when adults just grow bigger but don't grow up and get more mindful is that little issue that we have, that little anger, that burst, it turns into war. That's what it looks like when adults don't grow up. And that comes from the idea of our separateness, but it also comes from not doing our work, amen? Because part of our work is recognizing that we are not our feelings. So I'm teaching my daughter these days to say, anger is arising in me. Why? Why say anger is arising in me instead of I am angry? I am angry. What does I am angry need? It needs a I am angry at. I am angry with. It needs duality. It needs separation. It needs something to project itself onto. But anger is arising becomes what? An experience. An experience of witnessing anger. I am not my anger, but anger is here. I'm aware that I have anger. And what does that do? That takes the mind and it shifts it, because the mind wants to make meaning, right? And one of the ways the mind makes meaning is to find out why or who or how. But we can see with what's going on in the world and children, if you are at all awake and at all aware, we all know we are planetary citizens. Amen? We are planetary citizens of a one body. And so when there is injury to one, there is injury to all of us. And so when we take away that food for the ego, that food for the wolf that just wants more, show me who, show me where, show me the separation and let me eradicate it. When we relieve our ego of that food, what are we left with? Mindfulness. Let me sit with that. Let me sit with either the pain or the discomfort or the wound, and let me trace it. Let me follow it. Let me send breath to it. Let me bring life to it. Let me be mindful. And what happens then is we recognize the story is just the story, and we will greet the story in many times in our lives, and it will have different characters, different timelines, different reasons, but it's still the story, but it's just one story. The ego wants us to believe it is a bunch of stories, and you can solve it by looking at the story, rearranging it, finding out whose fault it is, and cleaning it up. But you can't. There's only one story. The Buddhists have a teaching about inviting someone in for tea. Knock, knock, knock at the door. Who's there? Anger. What do we normally do? Lock the door, bar the door. I didn't hear that knock. Did you hear that knock? Mm-mm. And then what happens? It blows through the door, doesn't it? Just like on the iPad for that moment that there was the bomb going off. And she said, "What's that?" That's war. So instead of barring the door, we become curious. We open the door and we say, "Come in for tea. Let me learn about you." I've been trying to reframe my mind, and that's a hard thing to do. And it's a hard thing to do the older you get and the more you've practiced what we've practiced. But I try to reframe it because as parents and as people together in relationship, what do we try to do? Anytime there's discord, we try to push it away, right? Stop. Don't cry, don't be angry, don't do this. We don't just go, oh, welcome in. Why don't we feel our hearts? So I told my daughter, I said, when I saw her experiencing something, that's anger. I think it was belonging that we were actually talking about at the time, which is a big trigger for me. Belonging, feeling like I belong. And I said, as I tried to take a deep breath and tried not to pass on my wounds, I said, that is something that's going to become familiar to you. That will come to you many times in your lifetime with different stories. So it's not about the kids on the playground. It's not about this, it's not about that. There will always be a story, and this feeling will come knock on the door. Because it's your feeling. Not yours as in you are subject to it or it is tied to your I am nature, but yours as in it is yours to presence, yours to be curious about, yours to heal, yours to learn. So I said, get familiar with it. Let's sit with it, get familiar with it. When we attach our I am nature to anything other than life, love, wisdom, we do ourselves and all of creation a disservice. And it's a war. I was recently at the Brookside St. Patrick's Day Parade, and while I was there, and sometimes in social situations, let's just be real with ourselves. We all have wounds, right? And you don't know about each other's wounds, do you? No. But you feel the effects of them, don't you? Yeah. We feel them all the time. And then we think we know people, but sometimes we know nothing about them. We just know their effect on us. So I was at this Brookside St. Patrick's Day Parade, and there was a woman trying to park her car. And it was a narrow street, and it was a tiny spot. Now, I love parallel parking, and I'm like, if it's big enough for the car, it can be done. Right? Let's have a contest, parking lot, after the service. We'll give awards like the chili cook-off. So, another car, because it's a parade, and people are trying to park. I mean, who would dare try to parallel park in a tiny little spot at a parade when someone else behind you definitely wants that spot and they're really close to it? And so what happens? The other car comes up right behind and right beside, right? So you've got lady trying to park, you've got couple in the car, you've got a bunch of people trying to get around, and then you've got those streets that are way too small for two cars, yeah? And this lady, she's like, I'm going for it, like she's gonna do it. By the way, a side note, I was with the people that were parked in the car in front, and it was a nice car that we came in, and so my people are also looking, going, really? And that's the look, She's going for it. She starts backing up. They come up closer. Starts backing up. She's still gonna go. They're coming up closer. A war is about to happen. The windows go down. Sounds start coming out of this vehicle. Sounds come back from that vehicle. They are not friendly sounds. We are at a parade. We are with children. There is a war happening in our world. And somehow automatically, out of my general foolishness that I have sometimes this weird lens, I stepped in right in the middle of the whole thing. I walked in between the two cars and I said, to the window and to the window. I can help. I can help. Here, hold on, here. I'll make sure that you're not going to get in. Here, you can do this. She pulls back. I mean, they were about to bite each other's heads off. And there's layers here. Because if I'll tell you who was in one car, it was very different than who was in the other car. Very different as far as the world sees as different. And a war and a battle was about to happen. And I just stood there and I go, okay. And everyone felt like I did that because I was being their friend. The people in the road were like, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I was like, I got you. Person in the car. I can help. That happened because at that time and space, on that little corner of planet Earth, on that little intersection, that little street, for some reason I felt like I belonged. For some reason I felt like I was a part of what was going on there, and I just moved with that feeling. So often I don't feel like that. So often I come from my wound, and my wound is that I don't belong. My wound is that I'm not the one who should be here. My wound is that everyone else is different. My wound is I'm not like everyone. And then I don't have a sense of belonging. And what happens when we show up without a sense of belonging? Fast forward to another story. I was at the park with my daughter. I had been introduced to this lovely mom, and at another time with another mom, and I had been introduced, but I'm in a new neighborhood, and I'm in a new neighborhood where I don't know if I belong, where I think everyone else there belongs more than I do. Is there anyone that it's your first Sunday here? Raise your hand. Yeah, if you're online too, raise your hand. Do you feel at all like there's any reason you couldn't get up at that back door and greet people when they come in? As if you own this church? If you want. If he wants to do it, he can do it. Do you feel at all like you're a visitor or a guest? Do you feel at all like you're looking at the outside wondering if you belong? If you are born and if you are here, you belong. Amen? Wherever your feet are planted, you belong, and you are as worthy and as valuable as everyone else. That's what the master teacher taught, and he went around teaching it, and he got crucified for it. He got removed because it's such a threat to honor the human spirit, to honor life, and to say you belong in this moment. So I was at this park with this mom, and I had been introduced to her, but my stuff came up, so she's sitting at a table, and I don't even remember who was there first, but I'm in a new neighborhood, so it's not like my park yet, you know? So she's sitting over there at the table, and I'm standing by the tree, and there's a moment where I feel it, and it's like, Erin, you should go over and be friendly. You should go say hi again and get to know this person. But what came up for me? A lot. They don't seem like me. They don't look like me. They're probably not going to like me. I'm single. They're not single. I'm not going to fit into their lives. What's the point? I'm so uncomfortable. I'm so uncomfortable. They belong here, and I don't. So what did I do? I stood by the tree, and I went. And we watched our kids play with no interaction. Out of my wound. But you know what my prayers are? My prayers are, I'd like to make more connections in my neighborhood. I'd like to have other parents that are my child's age that I could hang with. Did I act in alignment with my prayer, or did I create with my wound? Now you may say I didn't create anything, because what did I do? Nothing, I just stood there. You tell me if you were introduced to me, which this did not hit me until I was leaving the park. You tell me if you were introduced to me, and then the next time you saw me, instead of moving and coming towards me, if you just stood there by a tree, what you might think. Like this. What might you think? What are some thoughts? Not friendly. What else? Doesn't like me. What else? Aloof. Too much. Do you think extraordinary, light of the world, I can help? Am I going to actualize the intentions that I have in my community? Not with that. So I stood there, and then a cool husband showed up, and I was like, dude, maybe they would like me. Like, he looked cool, and I'm like, if she likes him, then you know what? I probably could be their friends. But I still stood there by that tree, and I started doing my work. And I started praying in, Erin, this issue of not belonging has gone too far. It is keeping you from giving your gifts. It is keeping you from the moment that you can say, I can be part of this, to generating something that you don't want to generate. And I'm not in control of what I generate on the outside, right? I'm not in control of that. All I'm in control of is how I feel on the inside. But by simply taking a breath and diving into that feeling and going to the heart, I can make a shift. And so I did that. I made that shift. And then I did prayers. And in my prayers, I woke up in the middle of the night dreaming about other core wounds where I didn't feel like I belonged, so I could heal that. Because what happens when we don't feel like we belong on the planet, with each other, in our nation, in the world, in our own skin, is that we create a war. We create discord. So I did that work. Not like it's done, it's not a one and done. But I realized I was living from my wound. I realized I was coming from an idea that I'm just visiting, or I'm the new one here. And I could have that experience, and you could think that's just an experience and that's not a big deal, but boy, can it generate different things, right? And I asked myself, why? Why do I feel like I'm the one that doesn't belong here? I don't know anything about anyone else. If I'm waiting in line for someone, why is it, waiting in line for something, why is it that I go, oh, everyone else fits. Everyone else belongs here. I don't belong here. I'm not really part of this for whatever reason. And you fill in the blanks, whatever your thing is, whatever emotion comes up, whatever the wound is that keeps you away from yourself, away from your love, away from your light. So it's ours to get familiar with that feeling, because we're here on the planet and we grow all over each other. Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. There's a story about a janitor working at NASA in the early days of the space program, and one day President Kennedy was touring the facility and he saw a man pushing a broom down the hallway, and he stopped and asked him, "What do you do here?" And the janitor said, well, he didn't say, "I clean the floors." What he said was, "I'm helping put a man on the moon." That's the difference belonging makes. When we think we're just visiting, we consume a place. When we know we belong to the mission, we become stewards of it. Amen? Belonging turns spectators into stewards. And everyone belongs. And everything we do generates something. So let's be aware and let's be mindful of what we generate. Namaste.